We know that if we are joined by the international community, we can continue to shrink ISIL's sphere of influence, its effectiveness, its financing, its military capabilities, to the point where it is a manageable problem.
A manageable problem. He talked a little tougher before he said that, but then he said that we could take this route. So again, with the mixed message, joining us is Bill Kristol, founder and editor of the Weekly Standard, ABC News political commentator. Hello, sir.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
I'm all right. So, watching the president earlier this morning, I kind of said to myself, for him, wow. And then all of a sudden he gets to this, that they can make it a manageable problem. Again, after he said we're going to kind of destroy them, now we could, on the other hand, we could make it a manageable. We could live with them. I just don't get this guy at all.
You know, I hope the confusion is a sign that he's realizes that his foreign policy has failed, that he needs to rethink everything, and that he's going through the different stages of sort of grieving about the failure of his foreign policy, and he's going through denial, and then what are the stages of grief? I can't remember them. You know, whatever,
right.
Bargaining, and then maybe he'll finally get to accept that the world is the way the world is, and we need to be serious about it. But he's sure resisting, unfortunately, pretty effectively doing anything serious about this very real threat.
Yeah, and you know, you made a brilliant point a couple of times ago that you were on with us, talking about how when the president said that in the end, you know, they will not stand, they'll be defeated, or they will not succeed. And you pointed out, well, the Nazis, that was their end too, but how many millions of people died before that, and that's not acceptable. And here he referred to ISIS today as a cancer, and then he said he wants to isolate the cancer. And it's been pointed out to me, you don't isolate the cancer, you destroy the cancer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, but that's, he wavers back and forth between occasionally saying we're going to degrade and destroy it, and then most of the time having more of a containment attitude, as if it would be okay to have an al-Qaeda, or really more than al-Qaeda, worse than al-Qaeda if that's possible, a state smack in the middle of the Middle East, taking up a chunk of Iraq, increasing its sway in Syria, threatening Lebanon, threatening Jordan, I mean, and threatening us, obviously. He does seem to have sort of half talked himself into thinking that containment is a reasonable option, and that we can work with our international partners and, you know, rally them gradually. It's all a fantasy. Unless we're willing to commit to destroying them, no one's going to join with us. No Sunni in the Middle East is going to think, well, I'm going to sign up with the Americans here. If we're sending such an unbelievably hesitant note, I wouldn't even say a hesitant trumpet of advance, I would say, unfortunately, sounds of retreat.
And we need to keep in mind that, according to what he said last Thursday, we don't have a strategy. And once we do get a strategy, he'll then take it to Congress, then they'll debate it, and then they'll see if they'll pass it. So whatever he's saying today is still weeks, if not months away from actually ever being able to occur.
Yeah, no, I mean, he doesn't seem to have a real sense of urgency about this, and I think that's really a problem. I just had lunch actually today with a couple of real foreign policy experts who've done work with the Obama administration, with the Obama Defense Department, as well as with Bush and previous ones. They're not very partisan, and they say if you actually get down to the ranks of the Defense Department, both civilian and military, they understand time is of the essence. You cannot let these groups build up momentum, govern territory, secure their hold on territory. All these neighboring all the Sunni tribes nearby, all the ones who might be thinking of resisting, the governments that are thinking of resisting, they're seeing what happens. And the longer this goes, it is very much a classic story, like in the 30s. I hate to overuse, I've always been against using or overusing the Nazi comparison, but it just gets harder to deal with the longer it goes. And the president really needs to have a sense of urgency about this and really commit us, I think, to doing everything it takes. He should also be honest that it's not going to be that easy at this point. And we're talking about various risky, it'll be risky, that things will go wrong, we'll make some mistakes, we're going to need to have troops on the ground. Not big combat brigades probably, but advisors, but they can get killed and injured and captured as well. And there'll be times when we try to partner with a Sunni group somewhere and they turn on us. I mean, this is going to be a messy situation, but it's a lot better to engage now in a messy effort, but I think it can be a victorious effort rather than just to sit back and let it go on.
Right, and you said, if I'm not mistaken, the other day, why not just bomb them for a couple of weeks and see what happens? I mean, that's the bombing. There's less of a likelihood of any Americans getting hurt or captured or killed. Just let's see what damage we could do, how much damage we can do by bombing them.
Yeah, I was being a little flippant.
Well, I mean, it does make sense.
I'm a big believer in getting people in on the ground. Obviously, you have to know where to bomb and how to bomb and all that. But the point I was trying to make, and I think this is key here, and to be serious about it is, and our guys need to be who are more hawkish have to be serious about this. We need to start doing things. You don't learn until you engage the enemy. You don't learn where their weak points are. You don't learn where you can make more progress than you expected. Maybe the bombing really would degrade them much faster than we expect, or maybe it wouldn't, and maybe we would have to do other things. Maybe they're weaker in some part of Syria and stronger in some part of Iraq, or vice versa. But that's why military commanders always understand that you can have the plans on the beforehand, but you've got to engage on the battlefield and adjust on the battlefield. But you've got to think of it as a war. I mean, that's the fundamental thing. We're pretty good at fighting wars, and if he tells the Pentagon, okay, go out, start engaging, see where their weaknesses are, probe, then let's really exploit the weaknesses, see which allies we can recruit, then let's really recruit them and use them. That's one attitude. It's not going to be perfect, but I think we certainly can win with that attitude. That's not his attitude. His attitude is, I'm not going in, or if I do go in, it's very much limited humanitarian rescue efforts, 350 soldiers to protect the embassy in Baghdad, and so forth. And I'm not doing anything unless everyone can assure me that nothing's going to go wrong ahead of time, and we know exactly how this operation can be limited. You cannot fight a serious military effort that way.
Right. No, absolutely. Now, I want you to listen to Joe Biden earlier today, who was a little more bombastic than the president was, as you might expect. Here's what he had to say. All right. Well, we don't have it.
The American people are so much stronger, so much more resolved than any enemy can fully understand. As a nation, we're united. And when people harm Americans, we don't retreat. We don't forget. We take care of those who are grieving. And when that's finished, they should know we will follow them to the gates of hell until they are brought to justice. Because hell is where they will reside.
Would it have behooved the president to take that tone?
Well, you hear that, though, from an administration that sat passively and watched 200,000 people be killed in Syria, and God knows how many people be killed in Iraq already, and then these two Americans, unfortunately, and it just rings. It's not only that it rings hollow; it's almost offensive. I find it, honestly. If you're not going to do anything, just don't do anything. Talk like Neville Chamberlain. Say this is too hard. We're not committed to this. We're not ready to be committed. And obviously, we deplore these horrible acts. But all that bravado and chest thumping, and then to do nothing, it's like the schoolyard bully who talks a good game and then slinks away. Is that the image we want the United States to project in the world? I really think this kind of rhetoric by Biden at this point is self-defeating.
Yeah, all right, good point. Now, one other about the president's remarks about Russia. This is a short one. This is 52. Let's listen to what he said.
Let's also be clear where we stand. Just as we refuse to accept smaller European nations being dominated by bigger neighbors in the last century, we reject any talk of spheres of influence today. And just as we never accepted the occupation and illegal annexation of the Baltic nations, we will not accept Russia's occupation and illegal annexation of Crimea or any part of Ukraine.
Really? That's kind of news to me, that last part. When's he not going to accept it? When's that going to start?
Well, of course, we did have to accept it for 40 years in terms of the Balts until the Soviet Union fell apart. So, I mean, I'm not criticizing that. There were limits to what we could do against the Soviet Union. But this is a very different situation. In a way, the analogy cuts against what the president, I think, wants to say. It doesn't sound like strength. It sounds like, well, we're going to keep on saying that we don't accept it. But, of course, we are going to accept it. We're not doing anything about it. And, again, he has a total lack of urgency about the fact that Russia is systematically carving up a neighbor with whom we made an agreement that we would help guarantee its territorial integrity 20 years ago when they gave up nuclear weapons. And again, the presidential, I mean, we're unwilling to stop ISIS in the Middle East, and we're unwilling to stop Russia in Europe. I mean, what kind of world are we going to have in a year or two if this goes on?
Yeah, very good point. Bill, great to talk to you as always, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Be well.
All right, founder and editor of the Weekly Standard, ABC News political commentator Bill Kristol. No, and he made the comment. I thought I didn't think he was being flippant, and he explained himself if he was, but really, I mean, bomb and see what damage you can do. Now, I didn't mean there didn't have to be people on the ground to tell you where to bomb. I didn't mean, and I know he didn't mean just start, flying planes over and just say, hey, maybe they're there, boom. No, but if you could identify where they are, and if you have the intelligence and the logistical work to know where ISIS is, bomb them. Launch a bombing campaign, an intense bombing campaign for a while, and see how much you could debilitate them. Nothing wrong with that. Anyway, all right, folks. Before we go, we have a new poll, and we want your opinion. Should the U.S. strike ISIS in Syria? That's the question. Go to Newsmax.com/poll. That's Newsmax.com/poll. And we'd love to get your vote. We'll have the results for you later in the week. Up next, it's the one and only Gimme 5. Don't miss it.